Gross is the place to go for fun in sun and fun in snow, a place to learn, a place to grow, where song and laughter freely flow. Come to Camp Gross today, throw all your cares away, make friends to last lifelong, and always sing this song.
Nestled in the woods on the shoreline of Cassadaga Lakes, within Chautauqua County, resides a place of magic and wonder, one that has served many generations of children and kids of all ages. That special place is Camp Gross. Camp Gross's mission is to serve the boys and girls of Chautauqua County. That simple principle has guided the camp through the many changes that have occurred for the more than 3/4 of a century it has been in operation.
At the end of the First World War, when the soldiers came home, they were all enthusiastic about doing something to improve the world, really. And many of them were attracted by the nearly new Boy Scout movement and the organized troops and later packs. And they needed a place to camp. And the Rotary provided them with a camp on the shores of Lake Erie and later with a camp at the site of Camp Gross. And Robert Gross, a banker and industrialist from Dunkirk, acquired that property and gave it to the Boy Scouts, with a provision that they should have it as long as they wanted it, and if they didn't want it, it was to go to the boys and girls of Chautauqua County. And Miller's family also had a piece of property located immediately adjacent to Robert's property, included the whole waterfront, and that family, under Ann Miller's leadership, also donated the property to the Camp Gross with the same provisions. And the scouters, the adults, the board of directors of the old Lakeshore Council were really enthused. And they got right to work at the camp and built several of the major structures that are still standing. The dining hall, the Enoch Carlson Lodge, was built well before 1935, and they used it as a summer camp until they combined with the Jamestown Council after the Second World War. The two oldest buildings there used to belong to the freight station across the lake, and in the really severe winter of 32-33, they hauled them across the lake with either oxen or horses, I don't know which, and set them up as home and cabin today and as the craft house. The craft house was the outdoor freight depot, and the home and cabin was the waiting room. And they've been used ever since for camping purposes. They also constructed other cabins at the camp. Racket Cabin was named after a longtime scouter from Dunkirk, as was Robinson. And Silliman was the gift of David Wright. And when it burned down, it got rebuilt as Eagle projects by two of Cassadaga's leading scouts. However, the competition for dollars in the administration of the Boy Scouts has always been severe. And they finally came to a decision that they couldn't stand the expense of keeping Camp Gross open. So they decided to sell it, but found that they could not, because Robert Madam Sr. was the sole surviving trustee of the original transfer of property. And he told the Scouts that they had to adhere to the provisions of the deed of gift, which provided that it would go to the boys and girls of Chautauqua County. And he and Robert Graham organized a not-for-profit council with very great aid from August Jankowski. And they set up a board of directors, which I'm proud to say I was a member. And they immediately reopened the camp as a youth camp for any interested organized youth group in Chautauqua County or outside if the space was available. And it's been continued on that basis from 87, 88, when the Scouts gave it up, until now, and we hope it'll continue on forever.
From its inception, Camp Gross has inspired people and motivated them to donate time, materials, and money in support of its mission. But why are these volunteers and board members so dedicated? What drives their commitment and engenders such enthusiasm?
I'd like to see kids from all over come and be able to experience what I was able to experience as a child, because it really is a great place. I'd like to see more youth groups, church groups, scout troops. And just to be able to have this experience to remember as an adult.
And you think that made a difference in your life?
Definitely.
And it doesn't cost very much to come here, and we take a lot of pride in that. And I think that's so important to communicate, because I think unlike other camps that have programs and program staff, Camp Gross exists to serve families and young people. And in that regard, we make the facilities available at a reasonable and affordable
Absolutely,
price.
absolutely.
We have wetlands, and we have woodlands, we have open fields, we have a great waterfront, and maybe the fishing dock is even more appreciated than the swimming dock. It's certainly used widely by the folks that use the camp.
The people who come to Camp Gross are diverse. They are male and female, young and old, raised in the city and live on farms. Some are wealthy, some are poor, and they represent all educational levels.
The camp is open to any organized youth group that brings their own leadership and their own program and their own insurance. And the camp has blanket or overarching liability, but each group, because they have their own program and leadership, has to provide insurance that will cover their activities while in camp. And this has worked out pretty well. Lots of Boy Scouts and Girl Scout units use the camp, many of them, very many of them in fact, have been coming back year after year, since we're open year-round. And we have 6 heated cabins, all with wood stoves or furnaces. And we have the August Jankowski bathhouse, heated with bottled gas, so that it's always comfortable in there. They find it a very useful place to be, especially in the wintertime. So except for the months of June and September, when school activities really preempt most of their free time, we have someone there every weekend, often several groups on the same weekend. In June, when we have very few scout groups or youth groups as far as that goes using the camp, we've been able to have 2 weeks of adult daycare come to the camp. And these folks are mostly profoundly disabled. Most of them in wheelchair, many of them need aid to eat. And when you visit with them, you hear wonderful comments about how this camp is the greatest place, and this week is the finest week we have all year, and we just hope we can come back again and again. And this is wonderful. And the picnic shelter has been a big help there, because you can get from the main building to the picnic shelter, and you can get from the main building in a Carlson Lodge over to August Jankowski quite easily with a wheelchair and an assist. The American Legion has a program for girls, and only girls, and they've come for a weekend for approximately 10 years as well, also in the summer. And I've been there often during day camp, and the kids are having just a wonderful time. There's all these fields to play in, and there's a great heap of sand on the shores and a lot of water to splash in. They have a lifeguard who oversees the operations at the waterfront, and then there's the fishing dock, and they can also fish from in the pond. So they have a grand time. And most of the counselors are first or second year college students and third and fourth year high school students. And she's assembled a staff and continued, many of them come back year after year, continued the staff very efficiently. The staff just does a wonderful job. They put heart and soul into their program, and the kids, as a result, respond heart and soul to the program they're presenting. We had for several years. In June, an Indian sponsored group by the Seneca ladies, and they came with just the ladies and had a long weekend full of recapturing the Seneca heritage. And they always camp down by the lake. And we also have groups from outside the council. We have a couple of Boy Scout troops from Michigan and from Ohio who come all the way, because in January and early February they're almost guaranteed snow in Chautauqua County. And of course, being on the ridge at Cassadaga, we're almost guaranteed snow. If there's any in Chautauqua County anywhere up on top of the ridge, there will be some.
Now we have some special guests who who come from the city of Buffalo, I believe in the late spring or early
Yes.
summer, they visit us.
Lafayette High School has a mainstreaming program for special children, and regular students are taught together in the same classes. And this group comes to our camp for a week in the summer in June. And they're another very enthusiastic group, and some of those have been coming for 5 or 6 years now. And they're, of course, older than Larissa's group by quite a lot. They'll be from 10 to 18. And they're a very enthusiastic group, and they have wonderful leadership. They just have a grand time. Because it's a grand place to have a grand time. Absolutely.
Usage of Camp Gross has increased from 2,000 to 6,000 camper days per year since 1988, yet the camp remarkably has no paid employees. Operating expenses are met through grants and contributions. Businesses donate materials, and volunteers dedicate their time and talents to ensure that the camp will be able to serve its mission.
It takes between $25,000 and $30,000 every year to pay the necessary expenses to keep the camp running, the insurance, the utilities, the repair and maintenance, and the minor improvements. All require at least that amount of money every year. We get some from the United Way, which is a great supporter, and we get, well, let's say, we get about $5,000 from the United Way, and we're approaching $5,000 or $6,000 from our rentals. And the rest of it we have to raise from the community, and the community has been very generous. And many other families, like the Madams, have also been steady supporters ever since the camp was organized under the not-for-profit group in 1988. And we really appreciate everyone's efforts to volunteer for the jobs that needed to be done and to volunteer to support us financially.
So any contributions made to Camp Gross go directly into the facility and
They certainly
and
do.
the camp.
They certainly do. We keep our overhead at a bare minimum.
And how will those contributions be used in the future? The same way they've been used in the past, serving the boys and girls of Chautauqua County. After all, there's a long tradition of passing the torch at Camp Gross.
We'd like to expand and enlarge all our present programs so that the idea would be to have every cabin filled every weekend, all year long. And with youth groups, there aren't a lot of ways that they can use it during weekdays. But nevertheless, we'd like to encourage all the schools to use it as their nature base. The curriculum requirements for the state of New York, for example, now require a great deal of environmental knowledge, and the outdoors is the place you really learn about the environment. There's a recent book out, The Nature Deficit Disorder, Last Child in the Woods, which I wish everyone would read, because it attributes many of our difficulties to the fact that we're so isolated from the real world. If you sit in front of a TV and play games all day, it's a lot of fun, and many people don't do anything else. But if you're outside, you have some chance for solitude, you have some chance to, in old terms, commune with nature, but to learn what life is all about, because all the life that we live is entirely determined by our outdoor environment and how well we take care of it and how we keep it useful so that our children, grandchildren, and on can find the kind of environment that everyone needs to survive successfully. So it goes like this. Camp Gross is the place to go. Camp Gross is the place to go. For fun and sun and fun and snow. For fun and sun and fun and snow. A place to learn, a place to grow. A place to learn, a place to grow. For song and laughter freely flow. For song and laughter freely flow. Come to Camp Gross today. Come to Camp Gross today. Throw all your cares away. Throw all your cares away. Make friends to last lifelong. Make friends to last lifelong. And always sing this song. And always sing this song. Now next time you're going to do it perfect. Very well this time.
Are you tactful?